Hell yes, dear listener. Thank you so much for joining in for the second edition of Bots, Thoughts, and Drops. I am Russ, scouting solo the HSP trail, remiss without my partner Luke. This show is supplemental to HSP. Here we cover the longer bots of the week, the topics on which we don't want to consume too much time on our flagship show. Basically, bots means bottom of the stack. A bot is a false conjugation for a single topic in bottom of the stack, or bots. I'm hoping I don't step too much on Luke's show prep this week, but I'm going to stay with the basic facts of each topic. It's not yet Friday, so I don't know exactly what Luke wants to cuss and discuss this week. We're not yet to Friday Night Comfy Post. But after 30 episodes, dear listener, if I may prevail, I think I have a pretty good bet on what Luke wants to talk about. In any case, basic facts mostly. What a crazy week, dear listener, I do declare. So let's giddy up and let's ride into episode number 2. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at Zero Gravity Med. Send us email at feedback@zero-gravity-media.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and TuneIn, all 3 under Zero Gravity Media. Find us on YouTube. Look for Zero Gravity Media and our Zero G logo. Now, dear listener, here's what stuck in my craw this week. First of all, this damn vote in the Senate today. I'm reading a piece from the Daily Caller. It is entitled, Rebuked, Senate Republicans Turn on Trump Over National Emergency. I'm going to take the piece from the top and then skip down a little bit. The piece goes thus. 12 Republican senators voted Thursday to rebuke President Donald Trump's declaration of a national emergency at the southern border in a major embarrassment to the White House. Now, keep in mind, dear listener, as Luke and I reported last week in HSP number 30, Rand Paul himself predicted as many as 10. Well, it turns out there were 12. The senators joined their Democratic colleagues in passing a resolution which notes official congressional disapproval of Trump's declaration of a national emergency. The national emergency declaration is paired with a number of executive actions designed to make approximately $8 billion of funding available to begin construction on a wall along the southern border. President Trump tweeted today, I look forward to vetoing in all capital letters, the just passed Democrat-inspired resolution which would open borders while increasing crime, drugs, and trafficking in our country. I thank all of the strong Republicans who voted to support border security and our desperately needed wall. I'm going to skip down a couple paragraphs. The senators who voted against the wall this week, dear listener, are Marco Rubio, Rob Portman, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Pat Toomey, Roy Blunt, Lamar Alexander, Mitt Romney, that cuck, what a surprise, 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 Rand Paul, Jerry Moran, Mike Lee, and Roger Wicker. 41 Republican senators stood by the Trump administration, including Senator Tom Tillis, who previously had declared in a Washington Post op-ed that he could not support Trump on the declaration of a national emergency. Well, Tom Toomey, thank you so much for seeing what the score is right now. Let me tell you what the score is, dear listener. It's this. All right, you see every single Democrat fixing to vote against you. Your principles are these right here. You vote in line with the party. This is war, political war right now, dear listener, and nothing less. Okay. Now, I read the statements of each of these senators who voted against President Trump's resolution this week, and every single one of them was like, my principles, I'm just worried about executive power. I'm not sure that we want to concentrate this executive power in the branch of presidency because... Now, dear listener, refer back to HSP number 30 where Luke and I perfectly laid out the case. This is the wrong time, you cucks. Ladies and gentlemen, cucks one and all. This is the wrong time. The correct time to stand up for the principles of separation of powers was when President Obama was in office, not right now. But you notice what's curious about all of these statements, which I just detailed for you, dear listener, and I'm not going to quote each because they're too disgusting, particularly Cuck Romney's. Just absolutely disgusting. They all talk about me, my, oh, I, my principles, I think, I, me. Not one time did any of these senators talk about what their constituency wanted, right? Their job is not to sit up there in the government and vote on their conservative principles, their necessity to keep separate the separation of powers and blah, blah, blah. No, their responsibility is to do what their constituency wants. They are hired guns. They work for us. We do not work for them. We don't give a damn what their opinions are. Their opinion is what our opinion is. That's the way a representative democracy is supposed to work. That government is ours. We are not beholden to them. They are beholden to us. And it's an absolutely disgusting, despicable display. And, I'm hearing a lot of commentary from the right about like, yeah, you know what? Don't worry about it. Trump's going to veto this resolution. And, it's not going to stand up to resistance. It probably is in the Senate right now, dear listener. Well, they would need 64, so maybe not, but who knows who's going to flip. I don't trust anybody in the Senate right now except for Ted Cruz and only a few in the House. I don't think that, now keep in mind, once President Trump vetoes this resolution, it has to get a vote to override that veto in both chambers of Congress of 66%, okay? I think it's possible in the Senate. I think it's unlikely in the House that they would get that vote threshold. So, President Trump will be victorious on this. He will survive this sabotage, this absolute treachery from his own party, right? But I don't like what I'm hearing from the right in terms of commentary right now about, oh, don't worry about it. President Trump's going to veto it. We're going to stand up behind the veto. It's all fine. Yeah, no, it's not about that. It's about treachery within the party. It's about failure to recognize what true principles are, failure to recognize who your enemy truly is, and failure to recognize when the right time to do such an action is. And I'm disgusted, dear listener, absolutely disgusted. And I want to call out one more Cuck. At least he voted in favor of President Trump today. But again, as we detailed in episode number 30 last week, dear listener, Cuck McConnell, the turtle, Cocaine Mitch himself, he does indeed get to decide what's brought up for a vote in the Senate. So why in the hell did he even give these cucks in the Senate the opportunity to go against the president? He said that he was going to support the president in this emergency declaration, in exchange for President Trump signing the funding bill just a couple of weeks back. These are exhaustively detailed in HSP previous, right? So he's right about this. So why does he even bring it up for a vote? Because he's a cuck, right? Now, he brought it up for a vote, and then he voted in favor of the emergency declaration. I'll give him that much, but this should never have been brought up for a vote in the first place, dear listener. This never should have been brought up. All right, I'm getting triggered already, and that's topic number one, so let's move on. Trump released his 2020 budget this week. President Trump's 2020 budget isn't just an outline of his government priorities. Democrats have interpreted it as a declaration of war. Basically, the budget increases military spending, increases spending for the wall, decreases spending in entitlements, right? And overall, I think that this is a good move by the president. We do have to decrease government spending, dear listener. I mean, we're 22 trillion in the hole right now, and that debt rises to the tune of about $20,000 every second. Stop and think about that. $22,000 every second of every minute of every day. So we have got to cut back on entitlement spending. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And we're going to get to that here in a little bit in these bots, thoughts, and drops. But I think that it was a little bit excessive in terms of military spending. Now, I do get that we're trying to rebuild the military and all this kind of stuff, but I do think that military spending is a bit of a bloated budget item. And also, as Luke and I said way back in the single-digit episodes of HSP, Space Force should not be funded right now. I understand that we're already at war in space. It has become apparent since President Trump called this. Both Russia and China are moving in space. See China's recent mission to the moon. They're going to harvest it for energy. Yeah, okay, I get it, but I just don't think that we can afford it right now. Let's ride on. Rahm Emanuel to Democrats. Don't be socialists or we may lose to Trump in 2020. I quote from a Daily Caller piece from the top. It goes thus. Former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel warned Democrats in an Atlantic op-ed published on Monday to not take socialist bait from Republicans, or else Donald Trump could be reelected in 2020. Socialist bait. Rahm Emanuel, are you serious? Your entire party has turned socialist. What are you talking about? This isn't bait. This is for real. Again, as we said in HSP number 30, dear listener, enjoy the destruction. Enjoy the rivalry. Enjoy this infighting within the leftists. Moving on. President Trump mocks amazing breed of never-Trumpers. This is really good. I'm quoting from a Breitbart piece. It goes thus. President Trump mocked Never Trumpers in an exclusive more than 40-minute interview with Breitbart News in the Oval Office on Monday afternoon, calling them nearly dead, amazing breed of political figures. Trump added, however, that the ones who are left are still slightly dangerous. And he goes on to call them, dear listener, poor bastards. These poor bastards, I just don't understand them. Way to go, shitposter in chief. All right, moving on. So, like, dear listener, I appreciate the fact that Lindsey Graham has grown a pair. I appreciate the work that he's doing for the president. Lindsey Graham was the one who called out the fact that probably the Senate was going to vote against President Trump's emergency declaration, but that it's okay, don't worry about it. The president's going to veto, and the Republican Party will stand by his veto. Well, there is a really alarming piece that came out on the 9th of this month, just a few days back. I'm going to read it from the lead. It goes thus. It's a Breitbart piece. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham says firearm confiscation laws pretend a way that Democrats and Republicans can, quote, come together. CNN reported that Graham has long supported red flag laws, which allow a court to issue firearm confiscation orders for individuals deemed a threat to themselves or others. House Democrats have already passed legislation during this Congress to criminalize private gun sales and extend the instant background check for firearm purchases. They are pressing for $50 million in annual funding to bring academia into the gun control push. The Democrats have also been vocal in their support for gun confiscation laws, and this is where Graham believes the left and the right can come together. Now, Luke perfectly illustrated back in, I believe it was HSP number 29, that this has been an issue with which the right has been fantastic because they have principles. They have always been principled on the Second Amendment. Now we're seeing cracks in the armor. Dear listener, Lindsey Graham is trying to cuck on gun confiscation laws. Okay. Now, this isn't just like you're objectively insane, right? You're a threat to yourself. You're a threat to your neighbors. You go out and fire your gun in the front yard at midnight every night or something crazy like that. No. These gun confiscation laws tend to go along the lines of anybody can report you as like, oh my God, Russ scares me so bad, you've got to go take away his guns. And then all of a sudden, the cops are beating down your door, knocking it down probably taking you downtown and probably taking all of my guns away, even though I am no threat to anybody in this world unless they are a threat to me. Now, dear listener, this is rather 1984-ish. This is really crazy because it relies upon citizenry to turn people in. Now, oh, dear listener, it's the crack in the door that we need to not allow to happen. And Lindsey Graham himself is advocating for it. This is a place where we can come together right now. You got to be kidding me, bro. So, like, listen, dear listener, don't ever trust this cuck, Lindsey Graham. Never trust a cuck. In the immortal words of Alfred Hitchcock to Francois Truffaut, all cucks are cattle. The intent being that they were meant to be led around, corralled, branded, and merely fed for food. It may be a misquote, but like we doubt that. We think that probably Hitchcock actually said that. But what we do know is that Hitch said was, I never said that cucks are cattle, only that they should be treated that way. Forgive the poetic license. Moving on, dear listener, the God Emperor comes out this week and says, making daylight savings time permanent is okay with me. Zero Hedge piece from the top thusly. President Trump has come out in support of a radical policy change that would likely find favor among millions of exhausted Americans, making daylight savings time permanent. Support for ditching daylight savings time, well, saving, not savings time, as the Tylers correct us, and that's true. It's daylight saving time, dear listeners, not daylight savings time. But I do speak idiomatically here in these hallowed halls of HSP and bots, thoughts, and drops. Support for ditching daylight saving time has been gaining popularity in recent years as studies have shown that it's not helpful for farmers and doesn't conserve energy, prompting many to wonder why we use it in the first place. Studies have also shown that the shift leads to an increase in car accidents, heart attacks, and strokes also climb, according to the Chicago Tribune. There's also another study not cited here by the Tylers, dear listener, which is that numerous children are also killed in the early morning hours waiting for their bus routes because it's so dark that bus drivers don't see them. This is also true. Anyways, Mr. President, do it. Do it. I don't care which time we pick, Mr. President. Like, pick daylight standard time, pick daylight savings time. It doesn't matter to me, but this change is insane. And dear listener, I have been wiped out by the time change this week more than ever. Perhaps I'm growing a little long in the tooth. Perhaps I've been doing HSP too hard. Perhaps I've been drinking a little bit too much, but none of these are really it, dear listener. The time change just absolutely killed me this week. So do it, Mr. President. You have my entire support. All right, there's an article that came out in the Daily Caller on the 12th. It says, new book claims Trump told John Kelly to fire his children. Oh, Mr. President, say it isn't so. I quote from the piece from the lead. It goes thus. President Donald Trump instructed Chief of Staff John Kelly to fire his daughter and son-in-law from their White House positions, according to a new book. HuffPost editor Vicky Ward alleges in Kushner, Inc. that the president was looking for ways to rid the White House of his daughter Ivanka Trump and his son-in-law Jared Kushner because they were a source of constant negative press. When Trump selected General Kelly to be his chief of staff in July, one of his first directives was for Kelly to fire his children. Get rid of my kids. Get them back to New York, Trump allegedly told Kelly. Trump also reportedly complained that his children, quote, didn't know how to play the game, referring to their seeming inability to generate positive media coverage for the administration. According to Ward, Kelly informed Trump that it would be difficult to fire his own children, so the pair agreed they would make life so difficult for Ivanka and Kushner in the White House that the couple would be forced to resign. Oh, please say it so, Mr. President. As I have said in Bots, Thoughts, and Drops episode number 1, Javanka gots to go. They're doing nothing but working against your agenda, Mr. President. I think that if this story is true, which, to be honest, dear listener, I honestly doubt this is true. I think that this is just ginned up to stir up strife between the president and his children, whom I think the president keeps there because he trusts them, right? I think that he needs comfort around him. Now, again, I would rather see Don Jr. in these roles. I would rather see Eric Trump in these roles, or even Lara Trump, Eric's wife, in these roles that Javanka holds. But I think that that's why they're there, because the president loves his children and he trusts them. Nonetheless, we don't trust them, Mr. President. We think that they're working against you. Get them out, Mr. President. And I can only hope that this is true, but I'm not counting on it. Moving on to the cheating scandal. Oh, this week, dear listener, what a disgraceful episode. I'm not going to describe it. Everybody's already heard everything about this. A bunch of Hollywood people were caught bribing in racketeering operations to get their children into schools such as Yale, Harvard, the University of Southern California, UCLA, Stanford, TU, the University of Texas. These bribes went up as high as $1 million, dear listener, and involve such corruption as hiring children to take SAT and ACT tests in their children's stead to the tune of $1 million. Absolute pure corruption. Absolute pure corruption, dear listener. Now, I'm not going to say much about this because I think Luke might want to talk about this tomorrow, but I'm just going to comment on this for now. I'm trying to think of how to say it. Let's just say that this is a pure example of what the left sees as white privilege, laying bare, right, for the entire world to see, except in this case, right, there is no privilege involved whatsoever. This is a lot of money involved, yes, but this is a situation where serious laws were broken, dear listener, including, once again, RICO laws, right? This ain't about privilege. This ain't about the exercise of privilege. And I do think that people are beginning to see this as the corruption it is. Even HuffPo was inflamed about it. The New York Times. The leftists aren't down with this, dear listener. They don't cotton to this kind of corruption whatsoever. It's an absolutely disgraceful episode, dear listener, and I do expect it to metastasize. I would say expect more colleges and universities to get involved in this, more celebrities to get involved with this. Probably people from Wall Street will be implicated in this. There's much more to this story than we know right now. I expect some headlines are going to drop tomorrow on Friday, the Ides of March. Now, as a footnote, I did receive a text from a certain dear listener to me saying that the greatest victims of this scandal were the children. And at the time, I absolutely agreed with that until this story dropped, dear listener who sent me that text. It was in the Daily Caller yet today. It was written by David Hookstead. I'm going to read the piece from the lead. It goes thus. Lori Loughlin, one of the people who was arrested for bribing officials to get her daughter into school, her daughter was bailing out bawling out. Lori Loughlin's daughter was bawling out on a yacht owned by Rick Caruso, chairman of USC's Board of Trustees, when the recent indictments were handed down. Loughlin and her husband, Massimo Giannulli, are accused of paying $500,000 in bribes to get their daughter Olivia into USC. The star actress surrendered to authorities Wednesday and is already out on $1 million bond. It turns out that Olivia was a bit of a high roller herself with the USC elites because Caruso, who has condemned the scandal, serves as the chairman of USC's Board of Trustees. See what I'm saying, dear listener? This is going to metastasize. This is going to go into very administrations of various universities. Absolute horrible incident. Absolute corruption. Now, also, second footnote. Why in the hell hasn't William H. Macy been indicted yet, dear listener? Inquiring minds want to know. William H. Macy is the husband of Felicity Huffman, who was also arrested in this bribing scandal. So you mean to tell me that Huffman's husband, William H. Macy, had no knowledge of rigging the system, of bribing people, of probably hiring somebody to take their daughter's SAT to get into college? Come on, man. It stretches incredulity. All right. I know that William H. Macy knew about it. They're a married couple. Of course he knew about it. But for some reason, he has not been arrested yet. And also another footnote, dear listener, here is Olivia Jade, their daughter, on video. She's kind of camera whoring it up on YouTube. Here she is on video. Here's where she is talking about college. You decide for herself what's up with this girl, dear listener.
We'll see what happens. And then the whole college thing, yep, I'm going. I'm living in a dorm with a roommate who's so sweet. With work, it's going to be hard. Like my first week of school, I'm leaving to go to Fiji for work. And then I'll be in New York a bunch this year for work and traveling to a different country because I'm creating something with this country, and that's for work. So I don't know how much of school I'm going to attend, but I'm going to go in and talk to my deans and everyone and hope that I can try and balance it all. But I do want the experience of game days, partying. I don't really care about school, as you
I don't really care about school, as you know. You should see her. First of all, you hear her vocal fry right in there, dear listener. You hear it yourself. And sorry, I cut that clip a little bit short. My apologies. But we do need to move on. But you heard her herself. She doesn't care about school, right? Nonetheless, her parents bribed people and probably committed more crimes in order to get her into school. And she didn't care. She didn't even care about it. Does she deserve to be in school? You tell me, dear listener. I don't know. I haven't quite decided about this. Actually, yes, I have decided, but moving on. All right. The next article that I'm going to move on to is, oh my God, right at the president. An SUV almost hits Trump's motorcade. I'm going to read a Zero Hedge piece from the lead. It goes thus. An out-of-control SUV plowed into a freeway divider just seconds before the presidential motorcade passed in Opelika, Alabama on Friday. The president was going to Alabama to visit the victims of the tornado, a very magnanimous gesture and very appreciated by your people, Mr. President. Way to go. But anyways, yeah, the presidential motorcade is going down the highway and an SUV runs right into the barricade between the two highways rather violently. And I'm just shocked by the lack of coverage in the mainstream media about this. Now, am I saying that this is an assassination attempt, an attack? No, I'm not. But dear listener, I ask you to respectfully consider the fact that freak accidents like this in the presence of the presidential motorcade don't happen very often. And anyway, it happened to get caught on video, and the guy shooting it was like, oh my God, right at the president. I would have been just as stunned. Well, anyways, to make this more disgraceful, on The View this week, so after the president and Melania visited Alabama to console the victims of the tornado, here comes The View right out on target saying that there's some kind of conspiracy theory about Melania having a body double. I'm going to take the piece from the lead, or the video from the lead. Here it is.
The fake Melania online conspiracy theory is back. Some people think that the First Lady is using an imposter to stand in for her. You mean there are two women that have to pretend they're listening to him? Take a look at the photos that are being posted. What do you think?
You know,
that one does not look like her. Sorry. I wasn't going to go along with this, but that one in that picture doesn't look like her.
You weren't going to go. Now you will.
No, it's a different shaped face.
All right, y'all are crazy on The View. Thank you for proving it. We just needed the evidence, as if there has not been plenty presented in plain sight to all of us who pay attention. I mean, you know what? View ladies. Personally, how do I say this? Personally, I think there is a much more credible case for the slab of beef named Hillary Rodham Clinton that was slung in to that limousine for having a body double after she almost fainted after giving her speech during the campaign trail. She was ensconced away to Chelsea's apartment nearby in New York City on a temperate day at a mild 68 to 70 degrees, but she was just feeling faint because of the heat, and then making an appearance before cameras right outside Chelsea's place about an hour and a half after it happened, after God knows what medical procedures were performed on her. You know what, dear listener? Hillary Rodham Clinton, right after she came out and spoke to the cameras after she was slung into that limousine like a side of beef, didn't look like Hillary Rodham Clinton to me. Now listen to me, ladies of The View. Broadly speaking, you don't want to go there, all right? This has been spammed out 7 ways to Sunday about your team having the body doubles. So, I'm going to prevail upon you a favor. Don't ever mention this again about Melania Trump. She is a righteous woman. She is a pious woman, and she loves the American people. And how dare you? Moving on to the next bot, dear listener, something we covered last week. Captain Marvel debuted this weekend. I'm going to read a Breitbart Entertainment section piece from the 10th. It goes thus. Captain Marvel, Marvel Studios' first female-fronted superhero movie, launched with an estimated $153 million domestically and $455 million globally. That is shocking, dear listener. That is a shocking amount of money. Now, I don't doubt facts and data. I believe the fact that this movie, for whatever reason, raised this much money. Probably because leftists and SJWs went there to watch Captain Marvel and bought 10 tickets for one viewing, because of the Alita Challenge that came out last weekend. Now, we explained the Alita Challenge in Bots in episode 30. I'll get into it in just a minute. But I want to take this other Zero Hedge piece from the top. It goes thus. The title of the piece is After Rotten Tomatoes Removes 93% of Reviews, Captain Marvel Still Sucks. Within 2 hours of publication, Captain Marvel's Rotten Tomatoes score jumped from 36% approval to 53% approval, thanks to an additional 30,000 reviews being stricken. Meanwhile, another 60 professional critics weighed in, dropping the tomato meter score from 81% to 79%. What this means, dear listener, is that Rotten Tomatoes, the movie review website, is also fake news. They went in and rigged the polling on Captain Marvel in the face of the Alita Challenge, okay? It's absolutely crazy. They're going to boost their SJW causes no matter what, dear listener. Insane. Even in movies. This isn't even news. This is movies, right? So I wanted to look into a little bit about the Alita Challenge, dear listener. Now, as we detailed last weekend, what the Alita Challenge is this, okay? Alita is a superhero movie, right? It's based on an anime/manga figure, right? I believe from a comic book, right? And, there was no political SJW rhetoric involved in the marketing of Alita, right? It seemed like an honest, just good movie with a female star, as opposed to Captain Marvel, which they changed Captain Marvel from a male to a female, made it all about SJW nonsense, made the marketing materials entirely political in favor of leftist causes, right? So what came up on social media was the Alita Challenge, which was to the effect this: don't go see Captain Marvel, go see Alita. And people were saying, I'm going to go like what apparently the viewers of Captain Marvel, the SJWs did for Captain Marvel, went and bought 10 tickets. Well, people with a little bit of political and common sense were saying, hey, I'm going to go see Alita. I'm not going to see Captain Marvel. I'm going to go buy 10 tickets when I go in there. Well, so I did some research into how Alita did this weekend. Dear listener, it raised $383,504,667. Okay, incredible numbers. Now, as good as Captain Marvel? No, but Alita isn't a Marvel film. It doesn't have the entire weight of Hollywood behind it. I also looked into how it was that Alita did on Rotten Tomatoes. Well, check this out. The official critics gave the reviews of Alita 60%. The audience score for Alita was 94%. 94% liked the movie. That is a far cry above Captain Marvel by a long shot. Now, is there some spamming going into rigging the polls in Rotten Tomatoes? Yes. But 94% is a number that even Rotten Tomatoes cannot reduce, dear listener. This is a stunning result. Alita challengers, be proud of yourselves. But like, seriously, dear listener, who cares? I mean, who cares about Hollywood? Who cares about movies? Alita, thankfully, seems to not be a bunch of political SJW garbage slammed down our throats, so I actually will probably go see this movie, right? But let me propose another intrepid idea here, dear listener. What needs to happen is that right-wing propaganda needs to be coming out, right? Not even propaganda, right-wing content is what I mean to say, right? True people from our way of living and our way of seeing and our way of being need to start making content, right? I have one intrepid suggestion, dear listener. Somebody out there is a filmmaker, I know, and I'm somewhat of a filmmaker myself, but I challenge somebody out there, make a film about Spygate. Make it a docudrama. Make it a straight-up documentary. That film is going to do bonkers numbers. Now, I would do it. I would do it, dear listener, but I'm too busy with HSP and work and life and other things going on right now. But I'm very intrigued by that concept. And I also find plenty of other topics which the right could make content about. And somebody out there needs to do it. Steve Bannon was doing really good work about it. He made the film Clinton Cash. It came out during the campaign season, and it was a really good film. It was somewhat of a documentary, kind of a new school Michael Moore style of documentary, but it was factual. It presented the case. Fantastic film. We need more of that type of content out there. And so, dear listener, somebody out there who makes films in the audience, I challenge you, do it. Now, speaking of films, dear listener, I want to talk for a moment about South by Southwest. Wow, what a shit show. I don't even know where to begin. Dear listener, I used to love South by Southwest so much. I've been there several times. South by Southwest used to be this. It used to be about going and seeing bands, dear listener, right? That's what you went to South by Southwest for, really, was to see bands, like bands that you couldn't really see on the regular, right? I have seen 16 Horsepower at South by Southwest with a dear listener in the audience right now. And it also used to be about movies. South by Southwest used to be about art, right? Now, apparently, dear listener, you go for the political feels, no other reason. I want to read a piece from John Nolte, who we called out last weekend, great writer at Breitbart. I want to take it from the lead. It goes thus. CNN chief Jeff Zucker appeared at the South by South Film Festival over the weekend to spread a number of conspiracy theories about President Trump and Fox News. I'm going to take it 3 paragraphs down. Without evidence, Zucker claimed that the Justice Department's attempt to overturn the mega merger of AT&T and CNN parent company Time Warner, quote, came from the president. There was absolute, quote, in continuing, there was absolutely no basis to be doing what they were doing, and clearly there was a political agenda at work, he said, according to Deadline. That's suable right there, Mr. Zucker. That is slander. It is in the spoken word, and that is slander. That is a lie, and that is a damn lie. And how dare you go out in public and say something as ridiculous as that? And more important, to the point, South by Southwest Festival organizers, how dare you allow that type of speech at your festival? Like, let's just have fun again, right? Does everything have to be political? A2 South by Southwest, like everything has to be all about the political feels now? Come on, man. It's getting a little bit tired. Well, the reason I call out South by Southwest is that also AOC was there, and she gave a panel discussion, and I've got some audio pulled up, but I'm not going to play it in the interest of time. We're already going a little bit long, but AOC said every sentence was completely stupid, but in this presentation, this one-on-one discussion, she ended up calling capitalism irredeemable. Now, Rush had a hilarious segment that aired on Wednesday of this week, I believe, where he did a montage of AOC's sound bites there, and it was, and like, yeah, it's just, and it went on for like 30 seconds, and it was absolutely hilarious, and it's absolutely accurate, and yes, it's edited for content, but that's the way this woman speaks. AOC and Jeff Zucker shouldn't even be at Southwest, dear listener. Nobody except entertainers should be there. That was the heart and soul of South by Southwest, and now even it has been corrupted by liberal politics. Want to move on to the impeachment scandal going on this week. Got a Zero Hedge piece from 311. 311 has grassroots. I'm going to take it from the lead. It goes thus. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has come out against impeaching President Trump, telling the Washington Post in a wide-ranging article that she thinks it would be too divisive to the country, adding that Trump is, quote, just not worth it. Quote, I'm not for impeachment. This is news. I'm going to give you some news right now because I haven't said this to any press person before, but since you asked, and I've been thinking about this, impeachment is so divisive to the country that unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, there it is, dear listener. Let me jump out of the quote for a moment. There is the disclaimer right there. Unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country, and he's just not worth it. The Post asked Pelosi to clarify her comments, asking her if she believes Trump is, quote, fit to be president, to which she replied, are we talking ethically, intellectually, politically? What are we talking here? All of the above. No, I don't think he is. I mean, ethically unfit, intellectually unfit, curiosity-wise unfit. No, I don't think he's fit to be president of the United States. All right. So there you hear the tone of impeachment. Now, she's coming out and saying that she is against impeachment, and everybody on the right took this and ran. Oh my, look at the flip on the left. I'm not sure that that's true, dear listener. Now, Rush has a couple of theories about it this week. His first theory is that Nancy Pelosi has access to some sort of internal polling that does not support the impeachment movement. All right. Now that may be true. All right. I do not refute. I think that's a great observation. Rush also says, and I quote, Nancy Pelosi has not taken impeachment off the table and never will. Okay, Rush. Now that's more like it. I think that that's what really is going on here. She is saying that she is against impeachment until she's not. If all of a sudden Adam Peach and Gerald Nadler come out and say, oh my God, look at this new fake news that we have. Now, Nancy Pelosi, according to her own disclaimer, is going to fall in lockstep and say, oh, well, we must impeach, right? Oh, I've been convinced now. Fellow travelers on the left, I'm convinced we must impeach. That's what I think the play is here, and I think Rush has a point. All right. But I have another theory here, dear listener. This is what I think is going on. I think that this is horse trading, okay? I think Nancy Pelosi is offering up an olive branch. I think without dealing directly with President Trump, she is going into negotiations with him, offering the good faith, which there is no good faith with Nancy Pelosi whatsoever, the good faith agreement to we won't impeach if you, number one, don't declassify the FISA warrants and other documentation that would absolutely destroy the left. Number two, you cuck with Lindsey Graham on his gun posturing about gun confiscation. Number three, do not pursue investigations into vote rigging. In other words, I think Nancy Pelosi, for these three offers, is saying that she will agree to not impeach the president if the president cucks entirely. Now, again, dear listener, I do agree with Rush. This is a temporary genuflection. It's a mere political play to stop the imminent onslaught, which do cometh in days, dear listener. And what onslaught am I talking about? I'm talking about more indictments coming down. I'm talking about slowly the argument being won bit by bit as more data falls through the cracks and is leaked to us. And I'm going to get to that here in a minute. Most of all, culminating where this is ultimately going to go is the declassification of the FISA warrants against Carter Page and George Papadopoulos, right? This is, I know, this is absolutely going to destroy the Democrat Party. The facts are going to be laid bare for all to see. And kind of like what we're seeing in this bribery scandal going on with, celebrities getting their kids into colleges, right? These are facts upon which even the left cannot agree. I think that we're going to come to a point after the FISA warrants where it's going to be thus, that even the left can't agree with the corruption that went on to get those FISA warrants. Excuse me, dear listener. They'll probably try to run cover. They'll probably try to front. They'll probably try to mount some false arguments, but it's not going to work. So anyway, I have a bunch of stuff about social media this week, dear listener. It's black pilling stuff and white pilling stuff, and I really have to make it brief because I'm running long already, but there is one thing that I want to mention. Okay. It turns out that last weekend, immediately after Luke and I recorded, it was made obvious that Zero Hedge had been banned from Facebook. And hundreds of users were trying to post Zero Hedge articles, and they were getting messages from Facebook saying, yeah, we are declining content from this content provider, blah, 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 blah. It's fake news, blah, 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 blah. Well, the Tylers wrote a scathing piece on Facebook about Facebook on Monday saying, hey, you know what? No problem. None of our traffic comes from Facebook anyway. About 2% of our traffic comes from Facebook. All of our Facebook traffic, or all of our website traffic is from loyal readers, right? Well, immediately after the Tylers at Zero Hedge made that statement, Facebook was like, oh, you know what? It was just a technical glitch. We fixed it. Now we're allowing Zero Hedge again. It was just a glitch, right? Well, naturally, the Tylers, not one to let a crisis go to waste, came out and absolutely clowned Facebook. Oh, dear listener, it was so white pilling because, I mean, listen, I am ride or die Zero Hedge. I have been with Zero Hedge since, I believe, the day they began, maybe within the first week. And, you know, it's not quite as great as it used to be. But dear listeners, Zero Hedge always tells the truth. That's the thing about them. And they have broken so many scandals, too many to name, more than Poll itself, if I may say. And they always back it up with facts and data, and they never tell you what to think. They just present the evidence, and you make your own conclusions. And I love Zero Hedge. So I'm glad that they got shut down, and I'm glad for them for the opportunity to clown Facebook. Glorious. All right, we're going to zoom through some facts about immigration. Oh, man, what a week about immigration. All right, I'm going to call out Bob Price from Breitbart. He wrote a piece on the 11th of this past week. Now, listen, dear listener, Bob Price is the most undercredited journalist in all of journalism right now. He is a fantastic writer. He covers Breitbart, Texas for Breitbart. Every piece he writes is completely solid, completely well-researched, and it reads like absolute poetry. I have never heard anybody call Bob Price out, so I am thankful for the opportunity to be able to do it on this show. Bob Price, sir, you fellow Texan, keep doing great work. His piece from the lead goes thus. Border Patrol agents in the nation's two busiest sectors of the U.S.-Mexico boundary apprehended an average of nearly 900 migrant families per day in February. U.S. Border Patrol agents assigned the El Paso and Rio Grande Valley sectors apprehended an average of 891 family unit aliens, FMUAs, per day in February. This represents an increase of almost 570% over last February's 132 daily average. Dear listener, we talked about this exhaustively last weekend on HSP 30, so I'm not going to belabor the point too much, but I was just blown away by the fact that it's not 900 people. It's 900 families, along with these recycled children. These children come in, they're shipped back across the border, and then hooked up with another family, and then they come in, and then these children are shipped back south across the border, and then they come in. Check out HSP number 30, dear listener. We break it down right there. Now, there is a study this week that came out. It is from the Center for Immigration Studies. Now, a lot of people call them a partisan hack group, but they're not. They do impeccable work. I'm going to read another Breitbart piece from the lead. It goes thus. Households headed by foreign non-citizens living in the United States, including legal and illegal aliens, use nearly twice as much welfare as native-born citizens, research finds. In recently released research by the Center for Immigration Studies, analysts discovered that about 63% of non-citizen households, again, 63% of non-citizen households, those who live legally and illegally in the United States, use some form of public welfare, while only about 35% of native-born American households, again, 35% of native-born American households are on welfare. 63% versus 35%. Pretty easy math right here. Likewise, roughly 50% of naturalized citizens, those who legally immigrated to the country and became citizens, use taxpayer-funded welfare, as well as about 55% of all households headed by legal immigrants, those who are naturalized citizens and those who are not citizens yet. I've got it all in a graph right here, dear listener, and it is harrowing to look at. Anyways, what it indicates, doesn't indicate, it proves that the United States has become the welfare state of the world. These people are coming here to abuse our welfare system, right? It's not about jobs. It's not about economic opportunity. No, sir. No, ma'am. It's about the Gibbs. And that's all it's about. They're coming over here for the free money. This is the greatest wealth transfer so far in the history of the world. And we're paying for it, fellow taxpayers. This is getting really old. And I'm going to try to post this graph. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it when we send this study up. I'm going to try to post this graph, but like there it is right there in print. And it's very easy to understand. Well, President Trump came out this week and he's said, I don't want to have anyone coming in that's on welfare. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate that. How about this losing the qualifier? How about we just don't have anybody coming in illegally and we extremely restrict people coming in legally? The president has already cucked a little bit on saying that he wants more people coming in at the press conference that we indicated about last week in HSP number 30, dear listener. He's already saying he wants more legal immigrants coming in because there's so much work. We need workers. We need them coming in. These captains of industry need workers. Well, as we said and detailed, there are plenty of workers right here in the United States, Mr. President, and this was one of your campaign promises. But your absolute campaign promise was to stop illegal immigration. Now, we understand that you're getting shut down by the left and shut down by cucks on the right. We entirely understand. But how about not qualifying it by saying, I don't want to have anyone coming in that's on welfare, right? Now, let's just shut it down, Mr. President. Let's go into straight up welfare reform like you have previously promised. If you are in this country illegally, you get no welfare. Write the executive order, Mr. President. Yes, it's going to work its way through the court system and it's going to be horrible. But do it anyway, Mr. President. All right, I'm going to read another Breitbart piece. Man, Breitbart getting a lot of call out tonight. A lot of love from myself here in Bots, Thoughts, and Drops number 2. Representative Chip Roy introduces a bill to declare specific Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. I'm going to read the piece from the lead. It goes thus. 2 congressmen filed a bill in the House to direct the U.S. State Department to designate specific Mexican cartel factions as foreign terrorist organizations. The bill follows a letter from lawmakers to Secretary Mike Pompeo calling for the designations. Quote, cartels are the problem, and it's time we started acting like it, Representative Chip Roy from Texas said in a written statement. My colleague, Representative Mark Green from Tennessee, and I are asking Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to conduct a review in order to designate these specific Mexican drug cartels foreign terrorist organizations. The cartels specifically mentioned are the Reynosa Los Metros faction of the Gulf Cartel, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, and the Cartel del Noreste faction of Los Zetas. Hey, how about this? Let's not name them specifically. How about we just name them all absolute terrorists? Every single Mexican drug cartel is a terrorist. How about that? Roy said that he and Representative Green chose these specific factions, quote, because of their particularly violent actions and international strategies to affect the political system. Yes, dear listener, it's true. These Mexican drug cartels have infiltrated the United States political system. They've completely overthrown the Mexican political system, and they are also active in political systems all around the world. They're not just running drugs. They're not just running immigrants, illegal immigrants. They're running governments right now and political parties, dear listener. This is extremely dangerous, and this is nothing more than a terrorist organization. Call them also, gentlemen. Now, I'm moving from bots now, and I'm going into thoughts just a little bit. We're running a little bit long. My apologies, dear listener. I'm going to try to make it quick. I'm going to talk about this piece that I have done up called The Absolute State of Fox News. Dear listener, it turns out that Judge Jeanine, who I love and adore, is in some hot water this week. I have a couple of audio sound clips of hers where she took down Representative Ilhan Omar, and she did it righteously. And she called Ilhan Omar out on the facts, and also through calling out Omar, called out Nancy Pelosi for that pathetic resolution that the Democrat Party wrote last weekend. I have 3 bits of audio from her called up, and in the interest of time, I'm only going to play the one for which Judge Jeanine got in the most trouble. Here it is at about 6 minutes in.
She then goes on to slam Barack Obama, saying he's just another pretty face who got away with murder, caging kids and droning people in the Middle East. But she adds he is a bit more polished. My question, why the disdain for the government of the country that saved you and your family after you lived in a tent in Kenya for 4 years? Why the scorn? And as the Democrats scramble to forgive, rationalize, and give a pass to a freshman in Congress, the joke is on you, Nancy. You've appeased rising anti-Semitism inside the Democrat Party. Let me say that again. You and the whole gang running for president in the Democratic primary in 2020 have appeased the rise of anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party. The sad part is that all this is contrary to the tenets of your party, which is so receptive to the LGBTQ community, illegal immigrants, refugees, and on and on. This is not who your party is. Your party is not anti-Israel. She is. Think about this. She's not getting this anti-Israel sentiment doctrine from the Democrat Party. So if it's not rooted in the party, where is she getting it from? Think about it. Omar wears a hijab, which according to the Quran 33:59 tells women to cover so they won't get molested. Is her adherence to this Islamic doctrine indicative of her adherence to Sharia law, which in itself is antithetical to the United States Constitution?
Oh. Now, dear listener, yes, it's scathing. Yeah, it's probably hard for, liberals to listen to, but where is the lie? Judge Jeanine did nothing but ask questions. And I think that these are good questions to ask. Well, I'm going to read Fox's statement against Judge Jeanine herself. The statement goes thus: "We strongly condemn Judge Jeanine Pirro's comments about Representative Ilhan Omar. They do not reflect those of the network, and we have addressed the matter with her directly." Are you kidding me, Fox News? Listen, you stand by your people, right? And what's most interesting here, dear listener, is that do you think for a moment that this script, because that's what everybody on Fox News does, everybody on television everywhere, they read a pre-approved script. Do you think for a moment that this did not pass through approval in upper levels of editorial control at Fox News? Of course it did. Of course it did. So Fox News, why are you trying to distance yourself from Judge Jeanine's comments after the left went hysterical, after the cucks went hysterical about, oh my God, we can't be saying this stuff about a Muslim, oh my God. Why do you distance yourself this way by throwing one of your greatest talents on your network under the bus? This is a wrong move, Fox News. Now, I do want to give you some praise. Moving on. Tucker Carlson also, dear listener, is in a little bit of hot water. I'm going to read a Breitbart piece from The Lead. It goes thus. It dropped on this past Monday. Fox News Channel host Tucker Carlson on Sunday said he will not apologize after Media Matters for America published a video compilation in which he opined on a range of controversial topics. In a series of segments on, quote, the title of the show was Bubba the Love Sponge Show. Between 2006 and 2011, Carlson discussed issues such as underage women, statutory rape, and polygamous sect leader Warren Jeffs, who was sentenced in 2011 to life in prison for raping a 12-year-old girl. He made the remarks during his tenure at MSNBC from 2005 to 2008 and his tenure at Fox 2009 to present. On Sunday evening, Carlson shared a statement to Twitter refusing to apologize and instead invited his detractors to debate him on his popular program. Quote, Media Matters caught me saying something naughty on a radio show more than a decade ago, said Carlson. Rather than express the usual ritual contrition, how about this? I'm on television every single weeknight live for an hour. If you want to know what I think, you can watch. Anyone who disagrees with my views is welcome to come on and explain why. Well done, Mr. Carlson. Now, I'm going to try to keep this brief as much as possible, dear listener, but I guess I've already said my message to Fox News, but it's basically this. Fox News stood up for Tucker Carlson, and if I may say, what Tucker Carlson said, the comments he made were slightly more racy and they were statements. They were, and I do support what he said, but they were kind of more off color than what Judge Jeanine said. I suppose that the difference was that Fox is protecting their own airwaves, and Tucker Carlson said these on other airwaves probably before he was truly under Fox's tenure, as opposed to what the article I just quoted said. Well, I just don't know what to think about it. I mean, I appreciate Fox standing up for Tucker And Fox, I really just wish you would stand up for the judge the way you stood up for him. But, half thank you, half get your shit straight about this, Fox News. Keep doing the good work. I love your content. I watch you almost every single day. I learn a lot, but stand by your people and please don't throw them under the bus like you did the judge. Now, Chris Cuomo chimed in. He said this. I'm going to play about 30 seconds of it. It goes thus.
So that takes me to what's going on right now in the media, chasing after Tucker Carlson and Pirro, the latest provocateurs on the Trump train over at state TV. They should apologize for what they said about every minority group they could target collectively, though Carlson is the main mouth. Apologize? Are you kidding? They're not going to apologize. Stop asking. They want to press the divide. They want to attack what most want to protect.
Yeah, this is really rich coming from you, Cuomo, your network who has done nothing but divide this country along every which line possible, racial, political, economic, total class warfare, everything. Yeah, this is really rich. I appreciate it. And now, what a profound statement, Chris Cuomo, if I may say. They're not going to apologize. Yeah, well, Tucker had already said he's not going to apologize. Brilliant observation. Keep the hard-hitting content coming. And there's this other bit of disgust that came out on Monday night from Colbert, nonetheless, who I used to love, but he's just, once he went to late night, dear listener, he's not even funny anymore. He's just a leftist hitman. Here's what he said about it. It's really disgusting. I'm going to take it from about the top.
Stuff for years. In fact, between 2006 and 2011, Tucker spent an hour a week calling into a shock jock radio show hosted by a gentleman named Bubba the Love Sponge. By the way, Love Sponge, the least effective method of contraception. The most effective? Tucker Carlson.
Haha, so funny.
Anyway, yep. Anyway, Media Matters went through all of the Tuck's appearances with Mr. Sponge, and evidently Tucker is none too kind to the ladies. For instance, here's one from 2010 where Tucker's talking about then Supreme Court nominee Elena Kagan.
But I do feel sorry for her in that way. I feel sorry for unattractive women.
Yeah, well, she could certainly, shape it up a little bit. Lose 10 or 15 pounds, get a tan, fix those teeth.
It's just absolutely fundamental. Physically, the problems are
this woman,
fundamental. She's never going to be an attractive.
Let's talk.
That is...
Yeah, where's the lie? Where's the lie, audience? Truly, where's the lie?
Harsh words from the next 007 here. The name's Breather. Mouth breather. But you know what? Tucker's got a point. We have to protect the Supreme Court's traditional high standards of physical beauty.
I'm going to skip
Justice
ahead.
Breyer.
Underage girls.
No, he's in
back up just a little bit.
Warren Jeffs, who was convicted of sexually assaulting minors.
Well, actually, he's not in prison for that. Warren Jeffs didn't marry underage girls.
No, he's in prison for facilitation of child rape.
Whatever the hell that means.
That means
he's in prison because he's weird and unpopular, and he has a different lifestyle that other people find creepy.
No, he's an accessory to the rape of children. That is a felony, and a serious one at that.
Wow. Tucker just got schooled by Bubba, the voice of reason sponge. That's not a good sign. But Tucker forged ahead with his idea of an argument.
What do you mean an accessory? He's got some weird religious cult where he thinks it's okay to, marry underage girls. But he didn't do it. The rapist in this case has made a lifelong commitment to live and take care of the person. So it is a little different. Let's just be honest.
Yes. Let's be honest. You're awful on so many levels. Though on a positive note, I think R. Kelly just got a character witness. Now, Tucker also shared his thoughts on women in general.
I love women, but they're extremely primitive. They're basic. They're not that hard to understand.
Sure. Women are primitive in that right now many of them want to throw Tucker Carlson into a volcano. Predictably.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. You know what, dear listener? This is even richer than Chris Cuomo's earlier comment. Okay, now let's just go into a thought exercise for just a moment here. How many people among the left have been convicted of sexual deviancy with children? More importantly, how many have not been convicted? Here's a list of both for your respectful consideration. I'll leave it to you to parse it out as a proof of whether or not you've listened to HSP, by the way, because the HSP boys have definitely called this out. So here's just kind of a small list. All right. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein, John Podesta, Mary Podesta, Tony Podesta, Tamara Lozado, Trudy Vincent, John Haber, Lori Rubiner, Catherine Klein, Luke Albee, Beth Donovan, Tom Rosenstiel, a certain prominent lawyer who will go unnamed for the purposes of legal protection, Keith Raniere, Allison Mack, Christina Fox, Linda Evans, the old actress on Dynasty, Kristen Kroik, Grace Park, that would be Sharon to you BSG fans, Battlestar Galactica fans out there, the Seagram heiresses, Sarah and Claire Bronfman, and once again, R. Kelly, who you spoof Colbert, but you have hosted on your very show, you hypocrite, Pee Wee Herman, Roman Polanski. Shall I go on? More importantly, Colbert, do you really want me to go on? Are you seriously implicating Tucker of being a defender of pedos based on a few patently falsely edited clips strewn together to create a false impression of what was actually said? Now, will I play for you the original clips, dear listener? No, that's not part of my case. I do not defend absurdity by proving reality, right? Reality is what it is. But Colbert, if I may say, you're the one making jokes about it, not Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is talking facts. All of these criminals that I just listed are fellow travelers of yours, Colbert, not of Tucker Carlson's. Now, do I agree with what the clips, these horribly edited clips that Colbert just played on his show that did come from Tucker? No, I don't agree with them, right? I think that there is a point where even your religion is insufficient defense for crimes such as sexual relations with children. This is something I'm absolute about. I'm in absolute disagreement with Tucker about this, right? But it was taken out of context in which Tucker was making a different point than the one which Colbert just drove home. And this point that Colbert makes about women, which, he deceptively edited, the point was this: women despise weak men. That's the entire point of Tucker's commentary about women. It was not to call women primitive, except in the sense that they can smell weakness on a man like a dog smells fear on a man. And that was the entire quote right there, Colbert, which you so happily just happened to cut out. Again, his quote had nothing to do with calling women primitive. It was a charge to men. The quote was not at all about women. It was a charge to men to be strong because women detest weak men. And that was the argument Tucker was making. Now, where's the lie in that? It's absolutely true. Women do detest weak men, right? Now, let's move on a little bit. I want to get a little bit to Tucker's defense of this. I'm going to play just a little bit of it. I'm going to take it from it from the top. Here it is.
One day you're having dinner with your family, imagining everything is fine. The next, your phone is exploding with calls from reporters. They read you snippets from a press release written by Democratic Party operatives. They demand to know how you could possibly have said something so awful and offensive. Do you have a statement on how immoral you are? It's a bewildering moment, especially when the quotes in question are more than a decade old. There's really not that much you can do to respond. It's pointless to try to explain how the words were spoken in jest or taken out of context, or in any case bear no resemblance to what you actually think or would want for the country. None of that matters. Nobody cares. You know the role you're required to play. You are a sinner begging the forgiveness of Twitter. So you issue a statement of deep contrition. You apologize profusely for your transgressions. You promise to be a better person going forward. With the guidance of your contrition consultants, you send money to whatever organization claims to represent the people you supposedly offended. Then you sit back and brace for a wave of stories about your apology, all of which are simply pretexts for attacking you again. In the end, you get fired. You lose your job. Nobody defends you. Your neighbors avert their gaze as you pull into the driveway. You are ruined. And yet, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how despised and humiliated you may be, there is one thing you can never do, one thing that is absolutely not allowed. You can never acknowledge the comic absurdity of the whole thing. You can never laugh in the face of the mob. You must always pretend that the people yelling at you are somehow your moral superiors. You have to assume that what they say they're mad about is what they're actually mad about. You have to take them at face value. You must pretend this is a debate about virtue and not about power. That your critics are arguing from principle and not from partisanship. No matter what they take from you in the end, you must continue to pretend that these things are true. You are bad, they are good, The system is on the level.
All right, we're going to stop it right there. Well said, Mr. Carlson. Now, listen, I support you 100%. Thank you for not cucking. Thank you for not apologizing. Thank you for not doing the contrition routine. And I do support you, Mr. Carlson, 100%, even though I don't agree 100% with what you said. All right, moving on. Tucker's gone on this week to bash Media Matters, probably in retribution for them attacking him and putting these clips together from that radio show he did years ago. Literally, I think it was in 2008. He went on to call CNN's Brian Stelter the House eunuch. Tucker's dropped the gauntlet this week, dear listener, and it's been really entertaining to see. Anyway, it turns out that there is a protest coming up against Tucker this week. It's going to happen in New York City, and I'm looking here for the date when it's going to happen. I don't see it here. But anyways, it's being hosted by Pod Save America, Luke and my rivals here in the podcast space. It was apparently a Wednesday, this past Wednesday at 11 a.m. They were going to protest in New York City at the Fox offices. I never heard anything about it. I'm assuming it didn't go off. Pod Save America, notice your interest. Or rather, your influence. All right, dear listener, I want to talk a little bit about this plane crash. I'm going to try to go through it real quick. I was trying to cut this off at an hour. I knew it was going to be long, but we're rolling it about an hour and 6 minutes right now, way too long. I'm just going to read from a couple of pieces and talk about the plane crash in terms of what I think is really going on here. All right, so we all know about the plane crash that happened in Ethiopia this week. There was a Boeing 737 MAX 8 that crashed in Ethiopia. It closely resembles a plane crash that happened a couple of months back in Ethiopia. There was horrible loss of life. All of my comments do not reflect any type of antipathy about the loss of life here. Dear listener, these are absolute tragedies. We should be praying for the victims. It's absolutely horrible, okay? So regardless of what I say here going forward, please don't lose sight of the fact that I really feel bad for these people and all of the affected people collaterally after these plane crashes, okay? Now, I want to read a couple of events that happened after the plane crash, and I'm reading from a Fox News piece. It goes thus, all right. 2 top Democratic U.S. senators called on Boeing to ground all 737 MAX 8 planes operating in the United States while the deadly weekend crash of an Ethiopian Airlines jet is investigated, while the head of the House Transportation Committee said Monday that he would, quote, think twice about boarding the aircraft in the future. The 2 congresspeople, of course, they were Democrats. It was Dianne Feinstein, none other, and Richard Blumenthal, Democrat, Connecticut. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Enemies of America, enemies of American people. Okay. Now, I've got a bunch of content lined up to quote about this, the basic gestalt about stuff that's going on. So I'm just going to skip all that, and I'm just going to go into the opinion section about this bot. Now, there may be some problems here, dear listener. Boeing may be in some hot water, as evidenced by the fact that they rushed out a software update to fix the autopilot functions after takeoff on these planes, the 737 MAX 8s. That software originally was due to blast in April after the Indonesia plane crash, but they pushed it out this week. This indicates that Boeing knew that there was a problem and they were taking their time, maybe even dragging their heels on getting the software update out. But I want to reflect on these facts, dear listener. Boeing is a great American company. It is rivaling commercial aircraft production by only one competitor, and that is Airbus. Now, a lot of people call Airbus a French company. A lot of people call it a British company. But the truth of the matter is that Airbus is really kind of a co-jointly owned French and British company, right? And they make great aircraft as well. I'm not trying to down them, but because they're both French and British, I mean, for the sake of simplicity, dear listener, you could kind of call them an EU company, okay? Now, that is a gross oversimplification. I do get it, all right? I totally get it. But in order to make this point, let's simplify a little bit. My contention is this. This tragedy is being used worldwide to mount an attack on American industry, dear listener. Tragic though it is an absolute attack by the entire world against our industry, okay? Now, I have a list of countries in order about when they grounded these planes. The first to ground the 737 MAX 8s was Indonesia. And you know what? They have every reason to, because they just suffered a horrible plane crash on their own shores. Yeah, by all means, if you don't feel safe with these planes, ground it, okay? Who was the second company to ground, dear listener? Oh, well, that would be China. right here in the middle of Chinese trade negotiations. Ain't that funny? Who was the third company to ground 737 MAX 8s in their country? Oh, well, that would be Mexico. Oh, this is too unsafe. We cannot have these planes flying over our airspace. We must shut them down and land them, and there we must put them in place and ground the fleet. That's exactly what happened. China first, Mexico second. Singapore followed closely. And even after several countries grounded the planes, well, then Britain fell in line. And shortly after Great Britain fell in line, the entire EU fell in line. Okay. Even due to political pressure, dear listener, with the entire world grounding the fleet of 737 MAX 8s, even President Trump had to relent and ground the fleet. And I believe that happened on Wednesday, March 13th. Okay. Now, my point is this, dear listener. Yes, it's a tragedy. Yes, it's awful, but this is pure politics. This is not about concern for citizens' safety. There is nothing humanitarian about this. This is a blatant attempt to give America a black eye in the world economy exactly during the time when the president is trying to rebalance trade on right now the entire world stage. Chinese trade negotiations going on right now. USMCA trade negotiations going on right now. Rebalancing of trade with the EU going on right now. Now, listen, I get it. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this. Oh my God, Russ, how can you say that? That's so cruel. People have died. We need to find out what's going on this plane for the interest of the consumer, for the interest of travelers. Oh my God. Okay, listen, before you flip out on me, I entirely agree. I freely concede that point. This is a tragedy. We do have to find out what's up. But how can I make such a bold claim? Okay. How can I say that this is about an attack on American industry? Very simply, dear listener, because all in lockstep, the entire world grounded the 737 MAX 8 with no evidence about what caused the crash. There's no reason to ground that plane until we know what has happened. Okay. For all we know, dear listener, in Indonesia and Ethiopia, both, these were jihadis that just straight up declared jihad and crashed the plane into the ground on purpose, okay? Now, listen, I'm not suggesting that's what happened here, okay? But that's just as much of a possibility as some type of design flaw on the Boeing 737 MAX 8 or some type of software flaw, okay? Both are equally hypothetical because we don't have any evidence about what happened. Why is it that the whole world in lockstep and concert all of a sudden grounds these planes with no evidence? I leave that suggestion to you, dear listener, but what it seems to me is to give our industry, one of our greatest American companies, a black eye. Now, again, dear listener, Boeing is a great company. They've proven reliable over decades, right? Their planes are impeccable, right? They have millions of flight hours to prove it right now. They've had some crashes in their past. Every airline manufacturer has had crashes in their past, both military and commercial, okay? They are going to figure this out. They're taking this very seriously. They're going to get to the bottom of it, and they're going to figure out what is going on with these planes, and they will fix it, okay? So my advice, dear listener, now listen, I'm no financial advisor or anything like that. This is just shit posting. These are not financial opinions, right? But Boeing stock has taken it on the teeth this week. Went down 8% from their recent lows. I think it's gone down another 8% today. I mean, man, it's really going down, right? There's going to be a lot more fallout from this for sure, dear listener. There are going to be some more things that come out, some more hysteria, some more countries virtue signaling against Boeing about, oh my God, how could this company release such an unsafe aircraft, right? Again, we don't even know that this aircraft is unsafe yet. We have no idea what's going on. There are similarities between the two crashes, yes, but there is no evidence to connect those two crashes even, much less even understand what's going on, okay? So my prediction is that the stock will probably continue to slide. But dear listener, if I was a betting man, I would say let the hysteria die down probably through Wednesday or Friday of last week, and I would scoop up as much Boeing stock as you can possibly afford, get it while it's cheap, and hodl, dear listener, hold that stock. Go long on Boeing because, again, this is a great company. They're going to figure this out. Last thought for the evening, dear listener. The title of this segment is Leaks, FOIAs, and Spygate. Oh, my goodness. There has been a lot going on with Spygate. And just in case Luke wants to cover this on HSP number 31 on Saturday, I'm only going to talk about the highlights that happened this week. But so much is going on. Oh, dear listener, This has been exquisite, just an exquisite week. I'm going to read from a Daily Beast piece from the top. It goes thus. After it claimed no such document existed, the Justice Department just unearthed a letter Matt Whitaker delivered to the Utah U.S. Attorney directing a review of how the department handled the Clinton Foundation and the Uranium One issues. Then Attorney General Jeff Sessions wrote the letter on November 22nd, 2017 for Utah U.S. Attorney John Huber. Matt Whitaker, who was Sessions' chief of staff at the time, emailed the letter to Huber saying that day, writing, this is so poorly written, man. BuzzFeed, step it up. Come on. As we discussed, this is almost unreadable. I'm going to skip a paragraph because this is such unreadable garbage. Of course it is, because BuzzFeed wrote it. The existence of a letter documenting Sessions' directive that the DOJ revisit probes of Trump's top political foe is a surprise because a departmental lawyer said in court last year that senior officials insisted it didn't exist. The liberal nonprofit American Oversight obtained the letter through a Freedom of Information Act request filed on November 22nd, 2017, the same day Whitaker emailed Sessions' letter to John Huber, the Utah attorney. Now, of course, it's the Daily Beast. They're putting a liberal spin on this. But let me spin this back the other way, dear listener. Remember Jim Jordan, Trey Gowdy, everybody in the Freedom Caucus in the House, they had subpoenaed John Huber to come to the House and testify in late December before they lost control of the House about, like, what's going on here, all right? How is this case being investigated? Do you have any type of mandate from Jeff Sessions? What's going on here? Well, dear listener, now we know that it is being investigated beyond the shadow of a doubt. Things are going on. Leaked documents reveal DOJ protected Steele after the FBI shunning him. Okay, now this is a little bit of old news. We've already covered this on HSP. I'm referring to a Zero Hedge piece that dropped on the 10th. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This is a Sputnik News piece that Zero Hedge reposted by Kit Clarenberg. Okay. Now, what it was is that the FBI let Christopher Steele go, the author of the fake dossier. The FBI let him go because he admitted to leaking to the press. Therefore, the FBI found him that he was not credible, and they fired him. They stopped working with him. Well, after Trump got elected, all of a sudden the FBI was like, put those irons back in the fire. Hey, let's get into, and went directly to Bruce Orr saying, hey, let's get back in Christopher Steele. What's going on with your buddy Chris? Let's find out what's up with him. Let's see what he's got going on. Let's see if he's got any more dirt on Trump. This literally happened, okay? Well, it turns out that now there are documents proving it. They were also sued for by Judicial Watch and a FOIA request. It was a 339-page document. So now we know that this is true, but dear listener, it's already a little bit old news because, quite frankly, it had already been leaked. All right. Now, speaking of leaks, man, things are going in our favor this week. Oh, Republican Georgia Representative Doug Collins on Thursday released a transcript of former FBI counterintelligence official Peter Strzok's congressional testimony hearing from June 28, 2018. This is a Daily Caller piece that dropped today, written by Chuck Ross, who does fantastic work at the Daily Caller. Fantastic stuff. I take the second paragraph. It goes thus. This is the third transcript of testimony Collins received within the past week. Collins released Justice Department official Bruce Orr's testimony on March 8th. He released 2 days of testimony Tuesday given by Lisa Page, a former FBI lawyer who exchanged anti-Trump text messages with Strzok. So what's going on? Here's the basic gestalt. All right, this glorious bastard Doug Collins from Georgia is saying, okay, you know what? I'm thinking the DOJ is taking too much time. We've given them plenty of time. We don't believe the DOJ is acting in good faith anymore. Number one, here's Bruce Orr's testimony. All right, DOJ, tell us your determination about what is going to be redacted from these. Oh, yeah, you're not going to redact anything? Okay, here's Lisa Page's testimony in entirety. Oh, yeah, okay, well, we're going to give you another day. What can we release? What do we have to redact? Oh, yeah, you know what? Here is Peter Strzok, completely unredacted. Baller move, Mr. Collins. Well done, and I deeply appreciate it because this is the type of stuff that the American people really need to know. So, Mr. Collins, thank you so much for your work. Now, dear listener, I have not had a lot of time to go through all of these release transcripts. I've gone through a little bit of Bruce Orr's, and I've gone through quite a bit of Lisa Page. I haven't touched Peter Strzok's yet. It just dropped today. Had the show tonight. Had to have dinner with my parents. Just didn't have time to get to it. there are some interesting things which not just myself, but a lot of people are gleaning from Lisa Page's testimony. I'm going to read from a Daily Caller piece that dropped 2 days ago. It goes thus. Republican Georgia Representative Doug Collins released the private testimony of former FBI lawyer Lisa Page. According to Page's testimony, which was made public on Tuesday, the FBI considered charging former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton with gross negligence under 18 U.S. Code 793 for her alleged handling of classified information. We had multiple conversations with the Justice Department about bringing a gross negligence charge, Page told Republican Representative John Ratcliffe. And that's, as I said, the advice that we got from the department was that they did not think that it was constitutionally vague and sustainable. Ratcliffe responded, when you say advice you got from the department, you're making it sound like it was the department that told you you're not going to charge gross negligence because we're the prosecutors and we're telling you we're not going to. That's correct, Lisa Page answered. You understand what's going on here, dear listener? That right there is Loretta Lynch who told Lisa Page, yeah, we're not pursuing gross negligence. Shut up. We're not going to prosecute this. Shut up. Okay. Now, what's really interesting about this? What's really interesting? Well, it's this, dear listener. Heretofore, we've always thought that it was James Comey who made that decision. No reasonable prosecutor would prosecute this case because we can't prove intent. You know, and he's the one that we've also heard heretofore that he changed the term grossly negligent in these documents to extremely irresponsible or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the term was, but we've always thought that James Comey was the fall guy for this. Well, he was the fall guy, but we always thought that he was the one to blame for this. No. Guess who it was? It was Attorney General Loretta Lynch herself, who reports to nobody else than President Obama. Dear listener, what have the HSP boys told you? There is no way this doesn't point back to Obama, and now we have proof. At the very least, this is gross negligence on the part of Obama, right? You're going to tell me that he doesn't know what Loretta Lynch is up to? You're going to tell me that Loretta Lynch is making the determination to not prosecute Hillary Clinton on the bathhouse email scandal, right? And Obama knows nothing about it? False, incorrect, right? At the very least, it's grossly negligent on Obama's part if he didn't know that. But what I do guarantee you is that he did know it. And what I would almost promise you, now we don't have the evidence yet, but as I've predicted before in these hallowed halls, I think that Obama gave the order. I am almost willing to go to bat entirely 100% for that, but not quite yet. I need to see a little bit more evidence, right? Do you understand what this is? This means that Obama made the order, gave the order to not prosecute Hillary Clinton for the bathhouse email scandal and for deleting those 33,000 emails. Despicable. All the while, while this is going on, they are investigating Trump. They're getting FISA warrants for people in his campaign. Also probably at the order of Loretta Lynch, getting FISA warrants on Carter Page, on George Papadopoulos. They're spiking the ball on the Hillary email scandal and investigating Trump for Russia, for which there was never any proof. We know this without a shadow of a doubt now, dear listener. There was never any proof. They were investigating the man. They were not investigating the crime. Here in the case of Hillary, they have a clear crime on their hands, but they're not going to investigate that crime. No, instead, what they're going to do is go after Trump, the person, the sovereign U.S. citizen, not even president of the United States at this point in time, not even president-elect, candidate Trump, and try to dirty him up with Russia nonsense. Oh, the fix was always in. The fix was always in. I cannot emphasize this enough, dear listener. We now know that James Comey was not the person who made the decision about no reasonable prosecutor would do this. It was Loretta Lynch. It was Obama's attorney general. Stop and think about this. Now, I'm not going to harp about this. I just want to go on to some other things that some other drops that came out yesterday, as a matter of fact. This was at the Epoch Times, and this piece was written by Jeff Carlson. Okay, Nellie Orr confirms Nellie Orr testimony. Oh, okay, yeah. So, let me first of all clarify where this testimony came from. It seems that somebody leaked to Jeff Carlson, who is also doing fantastic work, just like Chuck Ross, just like John Solomon, just like Sarah Carter, Sean Hannity, Dan Bongino. excellent work on this Spygate case. And once again, Dan Bongino wrote the book on Spygate. I just turned over a couple of pages on it during this week, dear listener, when I had some downtime and time for free reading. Man, it is a barn burner. It reads like a novel, not like a dissertation. It's fantastic. Now, it seems that, excuse me, dear listener, it seems that somebody has leaked Nellie Ohr's testimony also to Jeff Carlson at the Epoch Times, okay? So now we're talking about Bruce Ohr, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, and Nellie Ohr's testimony have all been leaked. I'm going to read Carlson's piece from the top. It goes thus. Nellie Ohr, the wife of former high-ranking Justice Department DOJ official Bruce Ohr, both of whom played pivotal roles in the FBI's investigation into the Trump 2016 campaign, worked for the CIA as an independent contractor for as long as 6 years. Let me read that last phrase one mo again. Worked for the CIA as an independent contractor for as long as 6 years. Ohr was hired as a researcher by Fusion GPS, the company hired by the Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee to produce the now infamous Steele dossier in 2015. She conducted open source research into members of the Trump campaign for Fusion GPS, which describes itself as a commercial research and strategic intelligence firm that may have been used in the Steele dossier. Yeah, may have been used in the Steele dossier. You blew that one line right there, Mr. Carlson, respectfully. She also provided her husband with a USB stick containing all her research from her time at Fusion GPS to pass on to the FBI in late 2016 after she had officially left the firm. Exhaustively detailed already here in these hallowed halls of HSP. Prior to her work for Fusion GPS, Ohr worked for an internal open source division of the CIA named Open Source Works from 2008 to at least June of 2010. It appears likely that she remained in that role until 2014. All right. Let's just break this down for a minute. Okay. Before Nellie Ohr ever went to work for Fusion GPS and cook up the Steele dossier and spy on Trump when he was still a candidate, spy on his family, try to dig up false evidence of Russia collusion, she worked for the CIA. Imagine. This is so explosive. I don't even know. My jaw is on the ground, dear listener, and I'm sorry. I don't mean to be histrionic, but this blew my mind. Okay. Absolutely blew my mind. Okay. Now, here's what Jeff Carlson says that he quotes from the transcript, all right? And he quotes Nellie Ohr herself, and her quote says this. Beginning in September 2015, Ohr began working for Fusion GPS. Ohr told investigators that she, quote, read an article in the paper that mentioned Glenn Simpson. And I remember because he had been a Wall Street Journal reporter working on things like Russian crime and corruption, so I recognized the name. I was underemployed at that time, and I was looking for opportunities. Oh, yeah? Is that right, Nellie Ohr? I don't suppose the article that you're referring to that you suddenly recalled that Glenn Simpson had written was the 2007 piece which Dan Bongino and now Devin Nunes himself call the movie script? The piece that is entitled, let me find it here, How Lobbyists Help Ex-Soviets Woo Washington, written on 27th April of 2017 by none other than Glenn Simpson himself and posted to the Wall Street Journal. Dear listener, I'm going to post a link to this piece. Go read it. Absolutely go read it. What does this piece detail? It details everything that you hear right now about Russia. The entire movie script, as Devin Nunes and Bongino call it, was written way back in 2007. Go read it. It's a mind blower. Basically, they only did one small revision to the movie script. They inserted Donald Trump's name. Now, the original purpose of this piece was that they were trying to dirty up, back then, candidate John McCain as a Russia colluder, right? They kind of swapped out John McCain's name and put in Trump's name, but all the same players are there. The exact same plot remains. These players include Vladimir Putin, Oleg Deripaska, Paul Manafort, all of them. Written back in 2007. It was a false movie script from the very beginning, and not to mention now, dear listener, it is 12 years old. But they tried to recycle this nonsense once again in 2015. Oh! Now, let's get back to the topic here about Miss Ohr. Now, Miss Ohr, you said, oh yeah, I remember I was underemployed and I was looking for opportunities, and I remembered Glenn Simpson. He was reporting on Russia corruption, and he wrote I remember him being on the editorial board for the Wall Street Journal, and I thought of his piece, and so I just, found out that he's at Fusion GPS, and I sent him an application. Okay, yeah, once again, Miss Orr, is this the piece you're talking about? Is this the piece you suddenly recalled? But the broader point here, dear listener, do you see what this means? She applied to work for Fusion GPS when she was working as a contractor for the CIA. She was a spook working for the CIA at the time she applied to Fusion GPS, or maybe recently laid off by the CIA. We won't find out this information. I mean, it's the CIA. We're not going to find out exactly what this is. But the question is thus that I have, was she instructed by the CIA to take a run at then candidate Trump back in 2015 when she first applied to work for Fusion because she was, quote, underemployed, right? More intriguing, more inquiring minds want to know is that, was she instructed by a certain individual at the CIA? Was she instructed specifically by a subgroup in the CIA to go take a run at President Trump? Now, you may ask, what exactly am I talking about? And that's a fair question, dear listener. That is a fair question. What I'm getting at is this. All right, at that time, the CIA was run by modern-day Democrat hitman, none other than John Brennan. Personal confidant of Obama himself. They were big buddies. John Brennan is suspected to be a Muslim. I don't know for sure if there's smoking gun proof of this, but it's widely reported that he is, right? Was Nellie Orr instructed by John Brennan, not by the CIA at large, but by John Brennan himself, to take this Steele dossier that was already pre-cooked and take it to Fusion GPS because of her contacts to her husband, Bruce Orr, who was fourth in command at the DOJ, go collude with Glenn Simpson, Christopher Steele, create this fake Russia nonsense, right? In other words, dear listener, was this a CIA op? Now, it's just a question. I'm not making the case. I don't know. Nobody knows this yet, right? But what we did not know until yesterday is that Nellie Orr herself worked for the CIA. That means that the probability of her knowing John Brennan is extreme, okay? Now, there's one other thing I want to call out about this, okay? Nellie Orr said, oh, yeah, I remembered the name Glenn Simpson, and, I'd heard his name because he was on the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal, and so I thought I might just send him a resume because I was underemployed. That's a lie. That's a blatant lie. Do you know how I know it? Because that company that Nellie Orr worked for, that subgroup of the CIA, right, on her job description page, there it is, all names on the same page with bios. Bruce Orr, her husband, Nellie with his bio, Nellie Orr, her bio, and Glenn Simpson with his bio back in 2007, dear listener. Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. You're trying to sit here and tell us that you finally met Glenn Simpson in 2015 when you finally applied to him. You'd heard his name in the Wall Street Journal and, blah, blah, blah. No. You heard his name when you were working for the CIA, Nellie Orr. That's what you call perjury right there, dear listener. Oh, this is going to get so good. I mean, folks, be joyous. Be white-pilled, okay? Bit by bit, it's all coming out. Expect more of these leaks. I mean, seriously, dear listener, in the coming week, expect, little bits to come out here and there, little tidbits here and there, little drips, little drops coming here and there. All of this culminating with the corrupt FISA warrants and the corruption which this weaponized DOJ used to spy on the Trump campaign while they were literally under direct orders from the Attorney General Loretta Lynch herself, a proxy for Obama himself, spiking the Hillary email investigation. Oh, man. It feels like Christmas in March. The Ides of March are upon you, Democratic Party. Drip, drop, tick, tock. And that's all I got this week for Bots, Thoughts, and Drops, dear listeners. Sorry I ran so long, but like these bots, we don't really want to talk about this stuff in HSP, so I just wanted to kind of blaze through it. I hope I kept it at a quick enough clip. Send us email at feedback@zero-gravity.media.com. That's feedback at zero-gravity-media.com. Let me know your thoughts. If I went too long, I do sincerely apologize. There were just so many bots this week. I will be quicker in the future, I promise, dear listeners. Some weeks nothing is going to happen, so Bots, Thoughts, and Drops probably won't even drop those weeks. Hopefully, Luke, my apologies if I stepped on our show prep in advance of the flagship show, HSP. But anyways, dear listener, thank you so much for coming along for this ride. HSP number 31 is going to be in the house on Saturday. You can set your watch to it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'll be back at you before you know it.